Welcome to Hospitality Insights Live. My name is Sam-Erik Ruttmann, and this is a show which I bring you around the world to discuss with industry leaders about the burning topics that is affecting our lives, and specifically what has affecting our lives during this time. And we also aim to look at the future, how we can do things in a way that make everyone's lives much better. This topic today, I think, is something I've been wanting to do for a long time, and we finally had the opportunity to meet a person who can help us to understand the mental health issues, particularly how can mental health affect an individual, and areas where unemployment is very high because of the lockdowns and the tourism, and Malta being a perfect example, unfortunately, of how people are suffering during this very difficult time. And obviously this has an impact on people's lives and also their mental wellness. So this is a topic that we're going to discuss today, and I'm very pleased to welcome Dragan Donkov, who is with the Richmond Foundation. So let me bring him to the screen. But I'd like to also thank the Malta Hotel and Restaurant Association, the Visit Malta, Ministry of Tourism, Training, and Mediterranean Tourism Foundation for being part of making sure that we can get this program out to all of you who are watching this. So welcome, Dragan. It's very nice of you to take the time to discuss these important matters with us. Welcome.
Good afternoon, and thank you for inviting me. Being here on this platform with the industry, it's a pleasure.
Thank you. Could you help us to understand? Well, first of all, could you introduce to us Richmond Foundation and what is your role with the foundation?
So, Richmond Foundation is a non-government organization. It's registered in Malta 28 years ago. That's what is registered, and we were mainly focusing on community mental health, and this is still our line of work, community mental health. And the last few years, we started expanding a lot on working on mental health at the workplace. The foundation is helping people with mental health problems and mental illnesses to live in the community. We have nearly, or actually more than 100, nearly 120 employees currently working with us. Just for an idea, I started working with the foundation 11 years ago, and we were only 35, having a couple of services available. Now we have hostels for people to live in the community. We have rehab programs. We have services for children with challenging behavior. And we also have this training and training unit, support unit, our work in the area of mental health at the workplace, where we provide the mental health first aid training, different specialized trainings. We have a large counseling service working for more than 100 companies. This year, actually last year, I'm still living in the past of it. Last year, we managed to come through one of our biggest dreams and to have 24/7 helpline. It's called 1770. That's the number, and it's available 24/7 every day at any time. So people phone and get help related to mental health. What is my role with the foundation? I was heavily involved in growing our employee support program for nearly 10 years. I'm still supporting this process with our contacts and getting new companies on board. But since last year, I mainly focus on training. So I'm currently the manager of the learning and development team. We're a group of people, experienced trainers who support the mental health first aid program, deliver tailor-made trainings for companies, provide consultancy for various organizations, help them to deal with particular problems. I'm also doing coaching, but not only in the context of mental health. Actually, I am avoiding doing coaching in the context of mental health, but work with leaders from different organizations and the different levels. Mental health comes quite often and in coaching. And I also teach coaching with a business school. So just to give you an idea that I have a good overview of different industries and levels of organizations.
Well, thank you. This is very wide field, and of course we are a hospitality-related show, but because this is touching everyone, everyone's lives is touching. So, and you mentioned earlier you're not in any way expert in hospitality, and that is not the reason you are here. Is to give sort of the general overview and also help us to understand what causes mental health issues and these. Possible causes. So could you help us to understand that? What is now causing mental health issues? I mean, I'm sure it's not only a COVID-19, might be also before that. So could you share your views on this?
Yes, and first, before like I give you some ideas what can cause mental health issues, it's good to to distinguish between people having mental health problems and people experiencing mental illnesses, because that's very important, and sometimes it doesn't work well when people need to get help, because when we're talking about illness, we're talking about something that is diagnosable. There's quite a number of symptoms. That's the job of the medical professionals to diagnose. And then there's the concept of mental health problem. These are experiences we have which might bring some of the symptoms of mental illness, but not enough to be diagnosed as a mental illness. And in fact, this morning we're doing one of our mental health first aid sessions with a group of managers and HR managers across various industries. And we spoke about that the fact that everyone will pass through a mental problem in their life. So this is it's good to start. Going back to your question, what will make people experience mental problems or maybe developing a mental illness? There are a number of risk factors which will come in the course of their life. It could be sometimes genetic predisposition to some form of illnesses. It could be something related to their upbringing. What was the environment of the family and the environment they grew up, like even school, poverty, even housing. So that's quite important. Culture comes into place. Then we have existing health problems, other mental illnesses. What else? We have abuse, neglect, loss, different traumas that people might experience as well. But as I said, the number of factors, and rarely you can get a mental health problem only based on one factor. A lot of stress can lead to mental problems, changes, loneliness, something that is quite visible nowadays. There's a lot of loneliness around.
Yeah. How has COVID-19 period with lockdown in Malta affected people's mental health issues?
It was an interesting experience to observe the whole COVID development in Malta, and also touch base with people in other countries. I must say that in Malta, we consider ourselves a bit lucky in terms of the amount of restrictions we have at the moment. And we had in the past, compared to other countries where people actually not allowed to leave their houses and without informing someone. We started seeing the effect of the pandemic immediately, and it developed on different stages. In the beginning, there was the big worry, what's going to happen. A lot of people are worried about relatives, other people who might be in a potential danger, their own health. They start worrying about their jobs. And I'm talking about across industries, because a lot of industries didn't know what's going to happen and how they're going to continue with adaptation to the new ways of working. A lot of people got really worried about a lot of restrictions coming in their life, and especially those people who already had some particular dynamics at home and they had to stay more. And we've seen this as a big problem. People who had to look after children and work at the same time, the lack of clear boundaries between work and professional life. So quite a number of things. Then we started noticing elevated anxiety. People were more anxious. There were a lot of false hopes. It's going to stop in a few months. The summer is going to be better. Actually, here we were doing quite well, and then in the summer the problem started coming back. and especially now if after summer as well, school. So people are affected a lot, worry about the jobs in particular industries. I mean, talking about hospitality industry, there's a lot of worry there. Hotels don't function as much as they used to function before. Okay, restaurants are probably more functional, so they're less restricted, but people don't travel a lot, and we don't have a lot of internal tourism to support the industry, which was quite big before. Many people have lost their jobs, so they had to deal with this. Many people had to leave the country who were here because of the industry, and a lot of hotels lost key personnel, which is very difficult to recruit back, train, establish quality. So that was quite a big impact on the health and the mental health of the nation. I am not hearing you. Is it?
You have talked to many people in the hospitality industry, I'm sure, and have you noticed how has this situation affected the leadership of the hotels? Because they are, of course, are under everyone is under stress, but the leadership who's taking responsibility of the well-being of their team must be also under tremendous stress in dealing with the situation. What have you noticed from that?
It's interesting to see that many leaders actually have lost completely their sense of boundaries because they were trying to make boundaries in how they protect themselves from from getting burned out. They had to actually put an extra effort to support everyone they could. They were seeing people leaving, for example, and they, as a manager, a leader, you know how difficult it is to go back to to functioning with good quality of people. They were seeing that actually this disrupt the lives of many people, especially people who couldn't stay here because they didn't have jobs, and they could see all the sadness and they can deal with them. Going through redundancy, it's one of the most horrible experiences you can have. Even as an HR professional, I personally went in the beginning of my career through something like that, making people redundant, and still something to remember 20 years ago. And the toll it takes on people. And now the worry is that the industry needs to restart, and there probably might not be, it will be difficult to get all the people together. Those who manage to retain key people probably are feeling a bit better. But we thought a lot about, saying we as managers, we thought a lot about the well-being of our employees, but I think we neglected a bit our personal well-being. And the last thing we want at the moment is to have burnt out leaders who actually need to push the restart of the industry whenever the industry will start restarting in a better speed.
What tips or can you give someone in that situation? Because there are, of course, when you have a burned out, you sometimes don't notice it yourself that you are in what situation you are. But just from your observations and in your coaching activities, what are the kind of advice and tips do you give in order to get over this situation that they are in? Because it can be quite a hopeless situation for many, and that creates a lot of anxiety.
One of the first things we always work in is building the self-awareness that actually you are going through this process. Very often people see some signs and symptoms like they lost their sleep, they feel tired, they feel a bit edgy, or there's a bit of a level of more like elevated mood or aggression sometimes. They become more sensitive. Other physical things like pain, headache, stomach problems start coming. And I'm talking only about burnout here, not really mental health problems, mental illnesses. People think that's the way how they should feel about, because they're exhausted and they're tired, and they have to put together, because I know managers who had to take a couple of roles to make sure that everything continues. Including painting and doing things just to save jobs and to move on with this pandemic. So the first step is we're building awareness with the individual, like this is happening. And how it's affecting them, how it's affecting their life. And it's interesting experience to see as this wow moment when they start realizing that, okay, it does not affect only me, it affects my relationship. Now I'm start realizing why my children are avoiding me, for example, or my partner is telling me you're not your usual self. And that's, a good moment, like, okay, I need to do something from here. And the next step is what I'm going to do. There are various options. I mean, ideally, if the person is at a stage that they cannot support themselves, they look out for help, being of psychological help or medical if they need. And by medical, I don't only mean psychiatrists, but even a GP who can run blood tests, help them to overcome certain issues. Find someone to talk, build a support network. In times when people burn out, rest is very important, but rest is not the only solution for this, because you can rest and then go back to the same problem, and you can even burn out more from this if you don't really find a way how to be more resilient, how to increase your resilience, how to plan your life and tasks, how much you can take, how much you can be available. Yesterday I was having a group session with a group of managers from another industry, and they were telling me my team is messaging me at 11 o'clock in the night, and I'm trying to be there because I think that they feel lonely and they feel worried. But then, that puts great toll on them. So we'll work around this as well. Getting professional help when they need, or building their support network with family, friends, boundaries when I work, when I don't, when I'm available, when I'm not, and for what I'm available.
Yeah. You mentioned a very important part, I think, is that the person who's close, close family members or close friends, what can they do to support that person who is going through that?
The first thing, and we've came across a lot of people who actually couldn't understand what's going on and couldn't support their partners. Accept that something is happening. Be there for the person, but accept. Don't judge the person for what's going on. I mean, not many people start with the concept, this is something that I did wrong, this is something against me. Usually it's not. It's the whole thing happening around them. And because people don't understand, they start this constant clashes. I mean, take a step back. Try to accept that something is happening. Try to accept that the person that you are with at the moment is passing through a difficult time, but maybe they're afraid to share. They don't want to put an extra burden on you. So by this means of protecting you, actually they're not protecting themselves. I mean, don't step in the role of the rescuer. Be compassionate. Be there. Be non-judgmental. Don't push them. Sometimes, and we see this quite a lot in the mental health first aid training, it takes weeks and months for someone to start going to help or to start recovering. Give the space for them to speak. Make sure that you have the trust and they trust you to do this. Normalize that it's okay not to be okay when you're not okay, and it will pass. And encourage them to go for help, because the sooner you go for help, the better. It's very similar to what people do when someone is having a physical problem. I mean, if you have pain and you go to the doctor, this might not develop more than, you need an emergency service. So the sooner you start, it is exactly the same concept. The thing is that not many people understand this, that's the way how you have to treat such problems.
Yeah. What is stigma associated with these issues, with mental health and maybe discrimination, or what have you noticed in your work that stigma associated, that maybe there's a denial that I don't have anything wrong with me because they're afraid to show that, and etc.
They are stigma. Actually, stigma affects all the aspects of person's life, and we can find stigma at work. when mental health problems are not tolerated, they are punished, or people lose their jobs. There is stigma in the society, there's stigma in the family, and there's also self-stigma. Stigma very often is associated with lack of knowledge. Stigma in mental health comes from quite many years ago, when people used to be locked, treated badly, named, shamed, and labeled. And it's quite discouraging to see that in at these days, where we're more acceptable and tolerant to many other things, there's also a lot of stigma on mental health. Having said that, I see quite a lot of positive change in terms of stigma. Many people share, many people speak. So if we're talking about stigma at the workplace, I mean, sharing that, and again, this morning we were discussing it with this group of manager, what are the pros and cons? And it's always good to share certain things, because you might get help, but people are afraid because this can go against them. They might seem unreliable. They might seem that, they're dangerous. And that's another misconception. People with mental health problems are dangerous. Very few compared to other dangers that are available. So that's what stops people from speaking and seeking help at work. Then we have the stigma of the society, people, how they'll be labeled, named, shame the family. Sometimes we've seen like the family is not letting the person to get help because they are afraid what the neighbors are going to say, what the community is going to think about. Being a small island here, and I'm a foreigner. I'm coming from a town with the size of Malta, but I understand all the differences here now, being nearly 15 years. This type of society is even more difficult to overcome the stigma. But I must say things are getting better. But because if you go to a doctor, someone might see you. That's how small sometimes the island comes, for those who know the island well. And then what's going to happen? I mean, the other island, Gozo, it's a really good example. Sometimes people actually don't get help there. They prefer to travel to Malta because it's less likely someone to recognize them if they get help in Malta. So, geographically, this is also helping with the stigma. I mean, again, these things are changing. So,
Yeah.
we see it. And then there's the self-stigma. I did this to myself. It's my fault. I am weak. I should not mention this. I should, overcome this on my own. It's just an episode. It's few weeks, 5 weeks, 7 weeks, 10 weeks, few months, and sometimes years for people to look for help.
Yeah. People who are laid off, what could be sort of, how can they be and remain relevant while they're looking for when the opportunity comes again, and in one way turn this time, if they can, to a positive for them? What would you advise them to do to stay healthy mentally during this time?
I went myself through redundancy 11 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, or more. And at the time, it was the end of the world for me. Although I was in a very different situation that I was here, I had much more freedom myself, and I didn't need to look after a lot of, after a family were quite manageable. Now, when I look back, this is probably the best thing that happened to me. But, more than 10 years passed. At the time, I remember losing hope, feeling like everything very heavy. What we advise people to do is to stay connected with the present as much as possible, to not punish themselves for the way they are feeling at the moment. I mean, job loss has all the stages of grief and loss. Like, it's like you've lost something important in your life. I mean, people are in stage of denial, then stage of anger, and then the acceptance come, and bargaining. I would love to give, let's say, some time and less money, but I go back to where I used to be. And everyone travels across the stages, in a day different pace, and they can go back to another stage. Being specialized in one industry, sometimes it makes your life a bit more difficult, because if you can get jobs even like, in other industries, that makes your situation a bit better. Stay connected with your support network, with your family, with people. Don't feel guilty because you've lost your job due to redundancy, because it's purely not your fault. It's a fault of a virus, or economic situation, or ban of traveling. um, Look around to see what can support you in the community, being like job search, services, like we have Jobs Plus here, which we're trying to be as supportive as they can. Any other people. In the meantime, keep yourself busy with things. I mean, use the time as much as you can. Do something that you're planning to do. Even like start walking more, be more active. Like if you have children, try to spend more time with them, or you never know when things are going to come from. It sounds optimistic, but at the same time, we must be aware that these are all good things to be done, but not everyone will manage, because if you lost your job after many years working in one place, it's a massive change in your life. Then we suggest try to find help, try for someone who you can speak with, or phone, or have appointments with some of the services available in the country. It's really helpful, and they will help you to refocus.
Yeah. No,
Again,
I mean,
toxic positive. Just give me a second. Apologies for this. Overly positive, and we call it toxic positivity. Everything is going to be good. This is for your best. That is as equally bad as being negative. Sometimes I like to keep things realistically. It's difficult, but shall pass one way or another.
yeah. I mean, very, very valuable points. I mean, like you mentioned, you have gone through this redundancy. I have gone through also. I think many of us who have had long careers, at one time or another, there has been that redundancy. I really you feel that it's your fault, and I found that what helped me is to create some sort of a um, schedule for myself to do different things in order to find a way to move forward. I mean, that was a long time ago. That's when I first joined like a social network like LinkedIn. That's where I posted my CV for the first time, and I realized that obviously that was not the time I got the next opportunity, but I just did everything I could to try to stay relevant and connect with people in the industry. We didn't have the social media at the time, so it was just connecting by any way we could, whether it's writing handwritten letters to sending faxes or what it was, whatever it took, we just tried to do. And more importantly, just try to stay fit and healthy, because I think the better you are fit, you can also manage this time of stress that you are going through.
Yes, I agree with this fully.
Yeah.
Routine is important.
Yeah. We talked about mental health and the stigma. How do you deal with the increased need of help, considering with the limited resources that are available, or do you have abundance of resources for people to get help?
We try to increase our outreach to community by the helpline, sponsored by the government, and we try to sponsor it ourselves, and increase. We collected some funds so we can offer free therapy for people in need. There's a program that we collect money. It's called the Gift of Therapy. Last year, what we managed to secure some funds, it was quite an interesting experience, offer mental health first aid training to the community. We have a number of groups. We try to fundraise as much as we can so we can continue offering services for everyone at a minimum cost or free where we can, because some people are happy to cover the cost of, and they know that by this actually they're helping other people to get depends on the help. Every help comes with a cost. We have to engage professionals, and they need to be paid. A lot of our efforts are getting funds collecting funds in the form of fundraising so we can sustain our outreach services. I mean, we are trying to be as proactive as possible. So I'm going to be launch a chat line as part of our helpline, so make it accessible for almost everyone who would like to speak and keep safe, not being seen. So a lot's been done, and again, we cater for different cohorts of people, and one of them is the people with chronic illnesses, which we try to take out of hospitals or from the hospital and put them to live in the community and support them to live in the community. This didn't stop, but opening for people who are going through difficult times in their life, but they don't have a chronic mental illnesses. This is something that we're lucky to say and happy to say. Actually, it grew naturally last year. We felt supported by the community, and the businesses we work with, they were ready to support some of our initiatives, which is quite a nice thing. I mean, Maltese business was very proactive last year in supporting mental health, which is something that I always praise.
Yeah. How is the government providing help and support in Malta, for instance?
Government in last year when we call it lockdown, a form of lockdown, engaged a lot of their own resources to support us, and we support each other. Government is sponsoring some programs and giving funds, and we constantly try to negotiate things with the governments. With the government, doesn't matter who which government is at the time, we always worked with, and some of our services are actually funded by governmental programs, which we apply, and we present a business plan, and we go through a whole process to make sure that everything is but money are usually not enough. Government open network, open helplines. There are a number of psychologists from the government working in the community. Then they try to keep people in employment, which is also a huge cost. Some people receive money to stay, and some companies receive money, which also contribute to the good mental health of people, because there's less shock for them if they need to make some cuts, in spending for a period of time for those who can afford. I know places who manage to retain their majority of their employees. I just can imagine what a big burden this was, but they really didn't want people to leave because they need them after.
Yeah,
and
of course.
They care about their people. Actually, that's the main reason.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking with you, which is very interesting about the situation, I was thinking, is it the time that companies should consider to have a chief empathy officer? I mean, traditionally in a company they have something called human resources or HR, who is the moral compass and so on. But when you live in this unprecedented time, because empathy plays such a significant role in the healing process. So what do you think of my little idea that every company should have a chief empathy officer in place for that?
I like how it sounds, chief empathy officer. I actually would like to find a job like that. If possible.
You're hired.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But I think there should be a group of people who have, or if it's not an officer, but at least a group of people, ambassadors, call them as you wish, that understand empathy, understand how important empathy is. In all fairness, a lot of actually businesses invested in raising awareness about being emotional intelligence and being empathic, how important it is for all aspects of business. We have a similar concept. We call them the mental health first aid ambassadors, which are people that usually you can go and talk to, and they can guide you, and you feel safe. Not only with the mental health problem, but with others, but with other problems. But they have good helping skills, and they are usually empathic people. It's interesting because there are a lot of non-formal empathic officers. I mean, each workplace, there's this couple of people that everyone talks to them, doesn't matter what their role is. And they can be at any level, from someone from reception, someone who's doing maintenance, and we have this non-formal chief empathic officers, always there to listen to you. And I think companies need to invest in empathy, not maybe an officer, but especially at managerial level.
Yes.
They sometimes people need to be reminded about what empathy is and how good empathy is in many ways and means of work.
So, because this is a live broadcast and also with the support of Malta Hotel and Restaurant Association, so I think I'm sending a message to MHRA here to lobby for that hotels and hotel companies should form this kind of position and also to create the training about this. So I think this could be our small contribution from this show. What do you think?
Oh, it would be fantastic. I mean, the people I know from the industry are most of them are very empathic,
Yes.
and empathy is part of the industry. I mean, you have these guests coming; they need to feel welcome. So this is all empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
They come with their problems, with their lives. Sometimes they cry. So it's empathy is part of the industry. I mean,
Yes.
I'm putting myself in the shoes of a guest, and how you're welcome in the place, and how I know which place I like, and I'm going to go back. And these are usually the places that I had good service and
Yes.
good understanding. So it's in the industry already.
Yes. Yes. So I think that should not be a complicated thing to implement then.
I don't think so.
No, but I also like the idea. It doesn't matter of what managerial role or we said that it doesn't have to be an officer. I just went very high on a title, but I think it could be anyone who naturally has could be whether it's a receptionist, could somebody from the for any department and who has that inherent feel of empathy, who's known for that. By the way, Malta being predominantly Catholic, how is the church playing into this in providing support for mental issues? I think when they must be having quite a significant role also.
The church is gearing up for this. We had a wonderful experience a few years back training a big group of parish priests on mental health first aid, and it was really spontaneous. We just contacted the local church authorities and we spoke with them, and they bought in the idea. They are very aware that people might share things with them, and they are helping. They're helping with issues also related to addiction. They are actually telling us that they're encouraging people to go to see a professional and they share with them their struggles. So it was quite a so yes, I'm seeing this across the whole society.
Very good.
Not only being but again, culture, we have to acknowledge this fear, which sometimes comes with any religion, depends how you've been brought up. It can be something that will prevent people from getting help.
Absolutely. Very good. Thank you very much, Dragan. Now I have a question basically for you. Looking back to the 2020, what do you consider to be your personal biggest accomplishment that comes to your mind?
Wow. I must say, and I know that it wasn't like that for many people. It was professionally, it was a really good year. You know, the learning was fantastic. I'm lucky to have a wonderful team and support from the organization that we've managed to turn everything upside down and come back as relevant as we used to be before. I know one of my biggest achievements is that I actually managed to spend more time with my daughter. For the first time, being quite a lot with her, which is a fantastic experience. I managed to do most of the things I wanted to do, start certain things in my coaching and here with Richmond and some sessions that we always wanted to do, and they came into place naturally. Being more connected with people, this was a great achievement as well. I learned how to stay at home, which I couldn't do before, honestly. But now I enjoy being at home some days. So there were things, I mean, I had my fair share of anxiety, struggle. I couldn't visit my family as much as I wanted to go. I haven't seen my parents for nearly a year. I don't want to take the risk for them, not for me. I'm not that worried about myself. I've learned a lot. I'd say this is one of the great achievements of last year. It was a fast-paced learning.
Very good. Well, Dragan, thank you very much. We have spent a very good close to an hour together, and you have shared so much about these issues. And I think I don't see any particular comments, but I think depending on the timing, we have how many people have watching the replay. So I'm sure you will hopefully get some comments. I would like to encourage anyone who is watching this recorded either on YouTube, on LinkedIn, or on the Malta Hotel and Restaurant Association's Facebook page to write in your comments, and we will group them together, and then I think we can create a discussion offline about these issues. But I just want to say thank you very much for this time and that you have spent, and I'd like to also thank Winning.Training portal, who has been helping us to have this show today, and also Malta Hotel and Restaurant Association, and Mediterranean Tourism Foundation, and Visit Malta, and the Tourism Authority, and Ministry of Tourism. So everyone who has been very helpful in making sure that we can go live and invite guests like yourself. So with these words, Dragan, thank you very much, and I really appreciate that you've taken the time.
Thank you.